We are beginning a series today, and it's going to be a 3-week series on the subject of habits. And this is a massive deal because pretty much where you end up in life is because of your habits. And so, for example, watch this. And you got to be honest here, okay? This is church, can't lie. God's watching. If there is a habit where you're going, you know what, I've had this habit for a while, I would love to break it. It may be attitudes, it may be actions, it may be eating, what. If you're going, then there's just at least one habit I would love to finally break that habit, raise your hand. Okay? If you're going, no, I'm in pretty good shape, but the person next to me has got something, no. Or if they're going, there's another habit, whether it's financial health, spiritual health, emotional health, relational health, family, relationships, getting in shape, whatever. If you're going, there's a habit I'd like to start, raise your hand. This series, we actually believe this, God is pro developing great habits. And this series is going to be about, next week is habits, break them. Week after that is habits, make them. And this week we're going to talk about the power. But I want to say this, habits shape our lives. As a matter of fact, there is a really fun book called The First Really Important Survey of American Habits. And they surveyed Americans about all kinds of dumb stuff. And then they said, here's the percentage on everything. So I'm going to test you all to see if Placer County and you conform to the national averages. You all ready here? So for example, I'm not making this up. This is in this book. When preparing a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, which goes on top, peanut butter or jelly? Okay, whoa. How many of you say, whoa, peanut butter goes on top? Let me see your hands. Good, 4%. How many jelly? You win, 96%, okay? Now, second habit, do you store your socks rolled up or folded flat? How many roll-ups? 51%. Folded flat? 41%. How many of you store those suckers in the drawer? Okay. Raise your hand if you've ever bitten your fingernails. Raise your hand if you've ever bitten your fingernails. Okay, 96% of Americans. Watch this. It's going to be about a quarter of you. Raise your hand if you've ever bitten a toenail. Raise your hand if you've ever bitten a toenail. Come on. That is 25% of Americans. Some of you are lying. Okay? Watch this. Raise your hand if you'd raise your hand if you'd like to be flexible enough to bite your toenails. Okay. Now, about automobiles, okay? When do you fill up your gas tank? How many of you are going, oh, when it just gets like down a quarter, it's still 3/4 full, then I fill it up. Anybody? Okay. How many of you when it's about half? How many of you when it's about 3/4? That's when you stop in and fill it up. How many of you when it's almost dead empty? And how many of you are going, actually, I fill it up when it stops moving? Is there anybody married to anybody that always leaves the gas tank empty for you? Okay, we have counseling available. Okay, next question is this. Who is usually late in your household? How many of you are, how many of you are going, he is? Watch this. How many of you are going, she is? How many of you going, we both are? Okay, next one is this. When you replace a roll of toilet paper, do you hook it up or do you leave it for the next person to hook it up? How many of you leave it? And watch this. When you hook it up, do you prefer that it roll over or under? Wait. How many of you are rollovers? 68%. How many of you are roll unders? 32%. How many of you overs married and under? Okay, here's another one. This is pretty easy. Who uses the most space in your closet? Wait. How many of you would say he does? How many of you would say she does? Applause is breaking out. How many of you guys in here would say, what closet? I'm gonna get in that sucker, okay? And here's the deal. The fact is this, habits shape our lives. They really do. And all you gotta do is ask one question, okay? Why is it some people, they just seem like they got better lives than other people? Why is it some people, they soar and a vast majority of people should never get off the ground? Why is it some people, they got better friendships? Why is some people have more friendships? Why is it some people, their relationship with their kids just feels like it's healthier? Okay? Not perfect kids, it's just the family's closer. Why is it some marriages seem like they're closer while others, they're fighting, bickering, separate rooms, all of this kind of stuff, nobody gets along? Why is it some people emotionally do better? Why is it, matter of fact, and the same thing's true like spiritually. Why is it some Christians, let's admit it, man, they're just more effective than other Christians. Some Christians, their faith is alive and it's warm and it's vibrant and they mean it. Same thing with high school students. Some Christians on campus, you're going, they're a Christian, they mean it, they love God, they love people, you can feel it. While other Christians, you're going, Friday and Saturday night, they've thrown the whole thing out of the window. Why is it some Christians, they just have a more alive dynamic that God is working in their life, great things are happening, you feel like this God stuff's going on inside them, and other Christians, they go to church, but they're stone cold dead. Why is that? I want to give you the entire life-changing thought in one sentence, and here it is. Effective people, effective marriages, effective teenagers, effective people are effective for one reason. And this is good news. It's not your background. Effective people are effective for one reason. Effective people develop habits that ineffective people are unwilling to develop. Would you agree? Effective marriages develop habits. Effective parents commit to habits. Effective Christians develop habits. Ineffective Christians. And you know what I love about this? Well, if you got a Bible, turn in your Bibles, whatever form you got it in, to Joshua chapter 1. Okay? And in Joshua chapter 1, the entire nation of Israel has got to develop a brand new set of habits because they've been stuck for 40 long years. Now, what's going on here is I'm going to read this passage to you, and this is such great stuff. If this gets too good, just grab the person next to you. Here we go, okay? Joshua chapter 1, verse 1 through 9. The first 5 words are startling words. Moses, my servant, is... That'd be like standing up here and saying, folks, the entire government was blown up. I was trying to think of an example. When they heard this, Moses, my servant, is dead. The emotional wallop they felt. We got nobody I could think of that if this person died, our country would feel. They heard that. In other words, if you're taking notes, just write down tragedy. Tragedy hits. And what happens, he says, Moses, my servant, is dead. Now, then you and all these people get ready to cross the Jordan River. In other words, the minute tragedy hits, God gives them fresh vision for their future. And he says, now, you and all these people get ready to cross the Jordan River into the land I'm about to give you. And you can picture these guys going, it's about time. Because, I mean, they came tearing out of Egypt, ran right up to the border. We're ready to go. And they've been stuck for 40 years. Ready? Wait. That's 40 years. And he goes, now, get ready to cross. And these guys are going, awesome. Now, that's followed by promises, which is followed by instructions. And here's the problem. God says, and I will give you every place where you set your foot as I promised Moses. Your territory will extend from the desert to Lebanon, from Granite Bay all the way to Loomis, to the Hittite country, to the Great Sea on the west. No one will be able, I love this. So for those of you that need a little confidence, remember, no one will be able to stand against you all the days of your life. As I was with Moses, I will be with you. I will never leave you, God says, and I will never forsake you. Got my promise. Now, here's the problem. That's God's promises. That's followed by God's what? God's instructions. A lot of people only want promises. They don't want to have to do anything. Other people, do you know anybody, they're just so harsh, all they want is instructions, but they got no promise. That makes sense? And the matter of fact, a guy told me one time, he said, my father was a disciplinarian. The problem was he gave me a rudder, but no sail. The promises are the sail, and the rudder are the instructions, and you need both to get somewhere. So he says this, and here's the instructions. Be strong and courageous because you will, circle the word lead. He goes, you're going to need strength and courage because you're going to be impacted. Be strong and courageous because you'll lead these people to inherit the land I swore to their forefathers to give them. And then he says it again, be strong and very courageous. Be careful to circle the word obey. I love this. He says, you're going to need strength and courage to live well and to lead well. And then he goes on to say this, and don't turn from it for the right or left so that you may be successful wherever you go. And then he says this, do not let this book of the law depart from your mouth. Meditate on it day and night so that you may be careful to do everything written in it. What's the next word? Then, circle the word then. Then you will be prosperous and successful. Now, look up here, would you? Okay, we're going to put a thing on the screen. Every single person in here, all of life, for people that do well, is about one thing. It's getting from here to there. You know what's funny? It's almost like Dr. Seuss speak. I love, you turn to Joshua chapter 1, and God looks at these people and says, I know you've been stuck for 40 years. I know you've been like, ready, wait. And then he comes along and goes, Joshua 1, here's the theme of Joshua 1. Oh, the places you will go. If you are willing to take the promises of God and the instructions of God and put them together. Because the entire thing is about getting from here to there. All of life is about getting from here to there. It's from getting here, where I am now, to there, where I want to be. And it might be here, I'm kind of lonely and I really don't have any friends, or the friends I do have are lame because they tear me down. There is having better friends. How do I get from here to there? It might be in marriage. We're not doing that well. That's here. There is a better marriage. How do we get from here to there? Okay. Matter of fact, if some of you you're married but you don't have kids, here is we don't have kids. There is, hey, we got kids in the house. Awesome. How do we get from here to there? Or some of you going, we got kids in the house. How do we get there? No kids in the house. Okay. And it might be here. Here is discouragement. There is hope. Here is doubt. There is faith. How do we get from here to there? Here is insecurity. There is confidence. Here is bondage. There is freedom. And the best chapter in the entire Bible on how to get from here to there is Joshua 1. And God comes along and says, you have been stuck here for 40 years. It's time to go there. And that only happens if you do three things. Write them in. Matter of fact, I'm going to fill out the outline now. Number one is this. What are the ingredients? The first one is this, future vision. The first one is future vision. Now, go down to number 2. The second one is spiritual vitality. Spiritual vitality. Future vision. Second one is spiritual vitality. And spiritual vitality, if you're taking notes down, just write the word fuel. Okay? If you're freed but not fueled, you're not going anywhere. Then, what do you need? Future vision, spiritual vitality, and now you're ready to go. Go to the very back page. Number 3 is this. Here it is. Get started. Number 3 is future vision, spiritual vitality, and then number 3 is this, get started. Now, go back to future vision. I'm going to unpack each one of these three fast. Number 1 is this, future vision. What does he mean by that? He starts and he says now, and every single thing he says in these verses is about the future. He says, get ready, I will, God just starts talking about their future, and not one time does he bring up their past. The problem is this. Take a look up here for a second. The problem is this. These people have been stuck at the border for how long? 40 years. If you want to know how long that is, take your age right now and add 40. That's a long time. And so here's what's going on here. 2 things have wrecked their lives, destroyed their future, and kept them stuck. They'll do the same thing to you. And the first one is this. Why did they get stuck in the first place? Why did their life go downhill in the first place? Here it is. They listened to the wrong voices. They listened to the wrong voices. Write that down. Teenagers, star this sucker. They listen to the wrong voices. Now, here's what happens. Just look at in Numbers chapter 13 and 14. Pharaoh, God says, Moses goes to Pharaoh and says, let my people. Pharaoh says, no. God says, oh, and 10 plagues later, he says, hey, thanks for coming. You can split. They split. They're going to, and here's what happens. They race down to the border. The promised land, here we come. It's happy time. And they race down and they go, they slam on the brakes. And then they go, wait a second. Oh, man, we better send some spies in to check it out. Let's do some advanced planning. Anybody know how many spies they sent? 12 spies. They come back. There is a minority report and there is a majority report. And the majority report, 10 of the spies come back and they wimp out. And here's, matter of fact, you want how bad it was? Here's the report. It's right there in this. But the people, they're like, guys, while we were gone, some people moved into the neighborhood and they're huge and they're really bad and we can't beat them. And he says this, the people who live there are powerful. And this whole thing's whining. And their cities are fortified and their cities are very large. We can't do this. And then they're like, we saw the Nephilim. They're the descendants of Anak. And by the way, these people were so huge, so fierce, their DNA evidently was corrupted. Are you aware? By the way, descendants of Anak are still on the planet today. You aware of this? Matter of fact, some live in Oakland. Believe it, Oakland, California. We have a picture of some of these folks. They're called Raider fans. And okay, back to the passage. He goes, and the descendants of Anak come from the Nephilim. And now look what it does to their self-confidence, their faith level, and their self-image. We seem like grasshoppers in our own eyes, and we look the same to them. We can't do it. 2 guys, Joshua and Caleb, come back and go, hey, the land is awesome. Yeah, those guys are bigger. God's bigger. But you know what's interesting is all 12 look at the same evidence. 10 of them come back and go, we see giants. Joshua and Caleb come back and go, we see a giant upside. Let's get at it. Would you agree it's always about 10 to 2? 10 negative voices speaking into your life for every 2 positive voices. Would you agree? 10 negative news stories for every 2 that you see that's any good. And here's the deal. 2 things kill them. Number 1 is they listened to the wrong voices and got stuck for 40 years just because they listened to the wrong voices. And watch this, you Bible scholars, you history majors, I'm going to put names on the screen. Check this out. Who are these guys? Shemiah, Shabbat, Hagel, who are those guys? You know what they are? They're the first names of the 10 spies that brought the whiny negative report. You know what's interesting is? Do you know any Christians that are whiny, negative, and critical? Yeah. You will never hear of them ever again. They never get anything done. You're like, Josh was awesome. Caleb's awesome. We preach them all the time. All these other guys, nobody's ever heard of them again. And here's what's going on. Look up here. The problem with this is by the way, are these people free? Yeah, they are. They have been freed from 40 years. I'm going to ask that again. Are these people free? Yes. Okay. They have been freed, but their whole future is wrecked because they're freed, but they listened to the wrong voices. And that happens in church all the time. People are coming in, I'm at Christ. I'm freed from my sin, freed from my past. God arose. I'm freed, but I still listen to the wrong voices, and so it makes no difference. Does that make sense? And so thank you. Number 1 is this. They are listening to the wrong voices, okay? And it keeps them stuck. Second is this. They got discouraged and they gave up. They got discouraged and they gave up. Now, watch this. I'm going to do a little show of hands here because this is going to be unanimous. Raise your hands if you've gotten discouraged in the last 2 months. At least once. Raise your hands if you got discouraged in the last 2 weeks. Raise your hands if the main source of that discouragement is Now, you and I are it's why I wrote a book on hope called The Hope Quotient. You and I are going to get discouraged every week for the rest of your life. It's just going to happen. When you get discouraged and give up, that's when your life crashes and you get stuck. Does that make sense? And two root things, if you want to go at this psychologically, two root things kept them stuck, and they're going to go on the screen. Number one, here's the big mistakes they made. They let their fears, not their faith, shape their future. When they got discouraged, they let their fears, not their faith, shape their future. And when they got discouraged, they let their hurts, not their hopes, shape their future. And so if you're going, I want to go from here to there. I want a better future. What do I do when life gets tough? All this kind of stuff. You flip these things, okay? Here's God's prescription for future vision. Instead of living the way, how do you get from here to there? You go, I'm going to let my faith, not my fears, shape my future. You can have the same circumstances, whole different attitude, and a brand new future, okay? You let your faith, not your fears, and your hopes, not your hurts, shape your future. And if you do that, then you actually have a future. Does that make sense? And you can go from here to there. It all starts with future vision. Okay? By the way, that second one there, I don't put many sayings on my wall. You know, I always, you know those sayings, winners never quit, quitters never win, but those who never quit and never win are idiots. I don't put any of that stuff on my walls, okay? I put that last line on my wall and left it up for about 3 years one time. Let your hopes, not your hurts, shape your future. And I actually believe you do that, you will have a future. Number one is future vision. Now, the problem is this. God says to them, here's your future now. You're going to need fuel to get there. And that happens with spiritual vitality. And I want you to go to the last verse on that in your outline right there. It says this, do not let this book of the law depart from your mouth. Meditate on it day and night so that you will be careful to do everything written in it. What's the next word? Then you will get from here to there. Then you will have energy. Then you will be prosperous, successful, because you'll have energy to get from here to there. Now, what in the world is all? Now, I'm going to unpack, just look up here for a second. I want to unpack Jesus' teaching on what kills off spiritual vitality. Now, to do that, I'm going to tell you a quick story. Carol and I were living in Southern California a long time ago. And I had a good buddy down there. He's married, just a really great guy. And his wife, they went to the church, and his wife got some skin disease on her arms and on her hands. And it would, for like a year and a half, 2 years, it just all rashed up. It would get better, all rashed up again. It would get better. He was always coming and going, hey, man, pray for my wife. We'd pray for her. It was like a 2-year deal. And nothing was working. Doctors, prayer, nothing helped. Until one day he came in and I said, hey, man, I'm praying for your wife. How's it going? He says, well, you could stop praying. I'm like, she'd die? What? He goes, you can stop praying. I go, and this is a smart, fun guy. He goes, you can stop praying. I go, what? And he goes, we figured out what was wrong. I go, what's wrong? And he goes, well, you know how we have a ton of houseplants? And he says, my wife's like houseplant. I mean, she's like the world's greatest houseplant person. Plants in every room, all this kind of stuff. She's so maniac, she would clean them, like every leaf, all this kind of stuff. And well, it turns out she had transplanted in about 6 areas without realizing it. She had just uprooted and potted poison ivy and was growing poison ivy in her house and cleaning the poison ivy with her hands and stuff. And he goes, you can stop praying. We figured out what was wrong. And sure enough, they got rid of the poison ivy. And in a few weeks, she was better and never had any problem again. Jesus is going to say, there is spiritual poison ivy. And he does it with a soil and plant example. So here he tells a story to the disciples. He goes, there's this kind of seed, this kind of seed, this kind of seed. And then the disciples go, what? And so he explains every one. So here we go. Okay, Jesus on spiritual vitality. Now, he gives 4 kinds of soil. I'm going to give you the 3 of them. The first soil, write this down, it's rock hard soil. It's hard soil. And Jesus is going to ask this question. If I want to be spiritually vital, am I receptive to God or not? Am I open or closed to God working in my life? Now, what's the thing? Watch this. He says this. A farmer went out to sow his seed. As he was scattering the seed, some along the what? the path. Now, circle the word path. Paths have two things in common. They are hard and they are narrow, okay? And he says this, it was trampled on and the birds of the air. And so he goes, hey, farmer took some seed, threw it on a path, birds came, boom, gone, nothing grew, okay? Now, then the disciples go, what the heck's that supposed to mean, Jesus? And he says, oh, here's what it means. Those along the path, they're the ones who? Circle the word here. You know what the problem is? Look around. This place is packed, wall to wall, up there. You know what y'all have in common? You're all hearing this. He says, those are the ones who hear, and then the devil comes, takes the word away from their hearts so that it might not believe and be saved. You know the problem? Write this down there. The hard soil equals a barren life. The hard soil equals a barren life. They're so hard and they're so narrow. I'll bet I've had 15 people talk to me in the last couple of years saying, you know what, my dad, my friend, my whatever, they're not a Christian. They don't even believe in God. And I go, hey, neither did I. Invite them sometime. They wouldn't even listen. Do you know anybody like this? Jesus is saying some people are so rock hard God can't work in their life because they're so rock hard, they're so hard and narrow that they can't. And you know what the problem is this? Here's the deal. If this is you, if you're going, you know what, I kind of come in here and I'm like this. I'm not, I don't pray because I don't really believe it. I don't give, I don't tithe, I don't serve. Nothing gets past me. I'm rock hard. You know what the problem is this? A hard heart leads to a barren lifestyle. And if you're a hard person, I feel sorry. Nothing can grow. Love can't grow. Faith can't grow. Hope can't grow. Nothing gets in. Nothing can grow. And you end up living a lifeless, loveless, barren, rock-hard life. And Jesus goes, that's soil number one, and it's tragic. A hard heart leads to a barren lifestyle. Now he goes, hey, whoa, there's a second kind of seed, and this is like shallow. Soil number two is shallow, and it's really the question, am I growing deeper? Okay, it's shallow soil, and that question is this, am I growing deeper? And he says this other seed fell on rocky soil, and as soon as it grew up, it withered away because it had no what? No moisture. Now, look up here for a second. This is not like rocks sitting around making stuff not grow, okay? I've been to Israel, and it's not like a bunch of rocks. What it is Israel has a layer of topsoil, and underneath it is rock-hard limestone. And it is really hard to dig deep and to get stuff out, okay? So, for example, Carol and I, when we had a home in Folsom about 20 years ago, we wanted to add a pool. And so we were out of town. We actually took our kids to Disneyland. They started digging the pool. I get a phone call. Houston, we have a problem. I mean, what's the problem? Like, we hit rock. Anybody know what I'm talking about? We hit rock. I go, how far did you get down? 8 inches. They had to blast out the pool, jackhammer out a swimming pool. The swimming pool went from this size to this size. And they literally had a jackhammer pool. We live in an area like this, don't we? There's a reason they call it Granite Bay. Rockland. You think this name happened accidentally? And that's exactly what he's talking about here. And so he says, man, there was just no, and the disciples look at him and they go, what's this mean? And Jesus goes, here's what it means. Those on the rocky soil are those who receive the word with what? Joy. Yeah, I love Bayside, love Jesus, love Christianites, receive God's word with joy. Man, Lincoln, that song was awesome. Great. So they're like, I receive with joy. Here's the problem. But they have no firm root. They're just shallow. And they believe for a while, but when temptation hits, they do what? They fall away. Write this down. Shallow soil equals superficial commitment, and it never lasts. It never lasts. Matter of fact, some people come in here, they go through the entire service, and they still have no clue what was going on because they're hard or they're shallow. Okay, does that make sense? Okay? And until I let God's word penetrate deep into my life so roots start sinking, I'm going to end up being a shallow Christian. Okay? Now, soil number one, you can't get going with God because you're just too hard. The second person doesn't ever develop depth with God because they're just too shallow. The third kind of person is this. It's thorny soils, and this is the California soil. You ready? This is it. It's thorny soil. And here's the question. Am I ruthless with distractions? Am I ruthless with distractions? And he says this, other seed fell among the thorns, or another word for would be weeds, and the thorns grew up with it and what? Circle the word choked. It's a big deal. It choked it out. And again, the disciples look at Jesus and go, what the heck does this mean? So he says, let me explain. He says this, the seed which fell among the thorns, these are the ones who have, circle the word heard, all three here, and as they go on their way, they are choked by three things. And does this not sound like Placer County, Granite Bay? Here it says, they are choked with what? Circle the first one. Worry, stressed out, can't sleep, so I'm all stressed. Or choked by riches. Doesn't this sound like California? They circle the word riches. Or choked by pleasure. Jesus covers the whole thing in three words. He's like worries, the riches, pleasure, hedonism, materialism, and stress. Welcome to America. And then he says this, of this life, and they bring no fruit to what? You know what the problem is? They never grow. Now, the thorny soil, it's basically a ton of weeds. Here it is an overcrowded life. The thorny soil is an overcrowded life. In other words, God's going, I'm trying to get into your life, but there's no room because it's crowded with all this other stuff. And I actually think our culture is becoming professional at making sure your life stays more and more and more and more and more overcrowded. Well, I'll give you an example. Anybody here ever been to Whole Foods? You been to Whole Foods? Okay, Whole Foods, okay, Whole Foods, when they opened up, had 2 kinds of lettuce. Now they have 40 kinds of lettuce. You're like, how do I decide? Starbucks, anybody go to Starbucks? Starbucks has 19,000 combinations. I thought it'd be fun to go to the drive-thru and go, can you give me all 19,000? I'll pick one. Here's another one. When I was growing up, now I'm an old guy, so when I was growing up, TV had 3 channels. And to change one, you had to walk up and turn a knob, okay? Now, if you include the music channels on our direct TV, we have like 2,346 channels, something like that. And here's what I read. The average, if you're a guy, raise your hand, just guys, we're guys, okay? The average guy will change channels 325,000 times in his life. And so what's going on is this, the average guy's sitting there with thousands of channels going, there's nothing on. Hey, I also read this the other day. I don't know if you're aware of this. There are 49 flavors of 9 Lives cat food. How do those cats do it? I think, and the problem is this, all these options are distractions, and what's interesting is this, the Greek word for is the word merimna, which pulled in different directions. God's going, I want you to get close to me. I want to develop things in your life. I want you to be generous. I want you to love God. I want you to love people. I want you to serve people, all this kind of stuff. And we get sucked and pulled by all 3 of these things. And you know what the problem is this? If you think of words, write down the word neglect. In your backyard, in your lawn, what does it take to grow weeds? Well, not that kind of weed. What does it take? The kind that take over your backyard. What does it take to grow weeds? You know what it takes to grow weeds? It takes no effort, 0. Okay? And here's what Jesus is saying. Growing things is easy. Growing the right things is hard. And what he's really saying is weeds in my backyard, wherever they are, they're a sign of one thing. You know what it is? Neglect. And when I neglect my lawn, weeds grow. When I neglect my relationship with God, weeds grow. When I neglect my marriage, weeds grow. When I neglect my kids, weeds grow. Does this make sense? And this is what he's saying. Now, what's interesting is all 3 of these things. Let me ask you a question. Are you ruthless with distractions? Pull them out. Am I growing deeper? And am I receptive to God? Because a hard, shallow, thorny life leads to a barren, lifeless, overcrowded, zero God life. And it's too big of a price to pay. All these things have to do with you connecting with God at a deeper level. It's all spiritual life balance. Because here's the deal. If you have future vision but no fuel, you're not getting anywhere. Does that make sense? Okay, that's actually why this whole Joshua 1, don't let this book of the law depart from your mouth, meditate on it. It's kind of an interesting thing. About a week ago, I was with all of our teaching pastors, and we were away for a retreat, mapping out the future, all that kind of stuff. Matter of fact, this whole listening to the wrong voices thing, which I think is now an epidemic, our next series after this habit series is called The Voice. And actually, you know the TV show? Mark Burnett runs that thing. I know him, so I'm actually trying to get our pastors actually in those chairs to turn around. Be kind of a fun intro to that series. I'll let you know if that happens. We're doing a series called The Voice, but we were actually sitting up there, and all of our pastors, all of our teaching pastors were up there, and I just asked them a question. I said, let me ask you guys a question. This whole verse, don't let this book of the law depart, meditate on it day and night. I go, raise your hand if it's been a while. Well, I actually said, raise your hand if you've memorized a section of the Bible recently. Not one hand went up. I'm not going to ask you in here because probably almost the same thing would happen. And I started thinking, when I was a brand new Christian, when you were a brand new Christian, did you memorize verses? You have people like, hey, John 3:16 and Romans 5:1 and Romans 8:28 and Romans 8:28 through 38 and all this kind of stuff. When I was a brand new Christian, I started memorizing all these verses. And somehow I got sophisticated and busy, and I stopped memorizing sections of the Bible. And so I looked at these guys and said, we should start doing this again. Every guy said, you're absolutely right. So you know what we did? This is one of them. We went and we took Joshua 1 through 9, went to Kinko's, printed it out, had them laminate it so you can get it really wet, put a little rope on it, and we're all hanging this in our showers. Hope on a rope, baby. Here we go. And every morning, we're going to be memorizing this thing. So if you see Kurt or Andrew anywhere in public and they can't quote Joshua 1 through 9, they'll give you $5. Not me. By the way, does this make sense? All of you drove here today. You can have the nicest car in the lot, and if it's not got gas in it, it ain't going anywhere. God says the same thing in Joshua. You need my promises. You need my instructions to get anywhere in life. And then he wraps it up by saying the word they've been waiting for forever. In other words, future vision, spiritual vitality, and then here it is, and I love this. He goes, notice this verse. What's the first word? Now. Circle the word now. Now you and all these people, and he basically says the gun goes off. What's the attitude? When should you get started? Here it is. Attitude, someday is today. What's the action? Take a step of faith. He goes, someday is today. Take a step of faith, and you will go from here to there. And now, don't pack your notes up. Look up here. Well, I'll tell you, I haven't told this thing around here in about a decade. You teenagers, I actually prefer, I was a senior pastor. I quit that and became a youth pastor because I like working with teenagers. And one of the reasons I like it is you can do these cool retreats. They pay you to go on vacation. That's what youth ministry is. And so we would go up to this lake called Lake Almanor every year, and we did 2 weeks of water ski retreats, and we would import teenagers 3 days, send them home, about a day between. My buddies and I'd stay up there, and then another new group would arrive. And it was between 2 retreats, and I'm up at a lake called Lake Almanor. It's the afternoon, and we got a really killer boat, a ski nautique, and we are skiing, and the lake gets really choppy. The wind comes up. It's white caps. So instead of getting off the lake, we invented a game. And so we shortened the rope. So it was only like 20, 25 feet behind the boat. So it wasn't that far away from the boat. Shortened the rope, and a guy got a stopwatch on the inside of the boat. And we said, okay, look, when you're up and stable, each guy's going to take a turn. When you're up and stable, you do this and then grab back on the rope. Okay? And the minute you do this, they start the stopwatch and they tell the driver, go for it, kill him. And so the driver literally, and it's how fast can they make you fall? Okay, and it would S-turn so the rope goes slack. They'd go up on dry land if this is what it took. The boat would come back, try to hit you, all this stuff. The game was called Suicide. And so I'm up there, it's my turn, and I am holding on for dear life. The boat is going, I'm just crashing on these things, and I get swung way out to the side. My arms are about coming out of my sockets, and I'm skiing as fast as I've ever gone on water, and I'm just going, and then I look in front of me, and I see it. About 10 feet in front, there's a duck. And I am skiing right at this duck. And I just decide, I'm gonna go right over this duck. So I am flying right at this duck, and I get about 5 feet away from this duck, and this duck's just like looking at me. And now, you animal rights activists, before you write me, here's the deal. You can't hit a duck on a lake. They go underwater when you get close. That's why they're called ducks. So I get like 5 feet away from this duck, and I'm ripping, and I'm thinking, this duck isn't moving. And I'm thinking, duck, nothing. And so at the last second, just before I switch my skis, and I go flying by this duck, and I'm going, why didn't this dumb duck? And I look down, evidently it is a mom duck, because right behind it, like on it, are 2 to 3 little tiny, like 3-inch baby ducklings. I don't do that to me. And I go flying by, and I look down, and I see them. And you know how thoughts can go through your head really fast, except during math classes in church? All these thoughts are flying. I thought, what a stud mom. She's like, hey, mess with my family. Come on, I'll take you out, sucker. And then I thought, isn't that like that God? He shelters us under his wings, protects us. And then I thought, the guys in the boat got to see this. So I go, check this out. And I'm pointing back, and I am so disoriented because I'm looking back at these ducks. I'm so disoriented that I forget what I'm doing. I am playing a game called suicide with guys who are trying to kill me in really bad conditions, and I am holding onto a speeding boat, and I am looking backwards. I never saw it coming. The wake, my ski went underwater. This is not a good thing because the ski what? Stops. I'm so disoriented because I'm looking back. I don't let go. I get yanked out of the skis, and I am now flying for about 2 seconds, and then slam on the water. I still don't let go of this stupid rope. I am being pulled underwater at 35 miles an hour. Trunks, gone. And I finally let go. I come to the surface. I'm checking for broken ribs. I get these trunks back up. I'm spitting out water. I can barely breathe. The guys that pull up next to me on the boat, they are laughing so hard, they are falling out of the boat. Ladies and gentlemen, I learned a very important Joshua 1 lesson on that lake that day. And that lesson is this. Nobody, the Israelites for 40 years, or you for however long it's been, nobody goes forward well when they are looking back. And nobody goes forward well where they are looking back. And in Joshua chapter 1, God says, I got new territory. I got new land. I got new habits. I got new life. You're going to get from here to there. But it will never happen if you get stuck looking back. Would you bow your heads right now, close your eyes, and shut out everybody around you? Every single one of us here has guilt from our past, grief from our past, or grudges from our past. I actually wrote this phrase in my Bible one time. Your past will never take you where God wants you to go. Your past will never take you where God wants you to go. And I love Joshua 1 because it says, your brand new day starts today. And just the word now. He says, now it's time. When's it time for you to finally connect with God? Now. When's it time to commit your life to Christ? Right now. When's it time to finally let go of your past? Now. When's it time to get serious about spiritual growth and depth? Now. When's it time to get closer to God? Now. When's it time to get in shape? Now. When's it time to connect in a small group? Now. When's it time to let God work in your life? Right now. You can get from here to there, no longer how you've been stuck. Let your faith, not your fears, shape your future. And if this is what you need, if you're going, I need to let go of my past, I need to get started on my future, I need Christ in my life, I'm going to pray a prayer of commitment. And you can pray this with me silently as I pray it out loud. If this is what you need, when's it time to pray this prayer? Now. Pray with me, would you? Lord Jesus, I believe you died on a cross, and I believe you rose so that I could be forgiven and have life with you forever and power right now. So right now I ask you to forgive me for all my past. I let it go. Jesus Christ, come into my life. Be my Savior. I receive you this morning. And be my Lord. Make me the person you want me to be. Thank you for your love. And with your head still bowed and your eyes closed and nobody looking around, if you prayed that prayer, I'm not going to call you out, not going to embarrass you, but I would love to pray for you that the rest of your life would end up being the best of your life, just like Joshua 1. And so if you prayed that prayer right now, would you just raise your hand? Just put your hand up. Be a ton of you. Awesome. Way up. There's a sea of you. Way to go. Way to go. Afterwards, just go to the I raise my hand table. Lord, thank you for your love. Thank you for these men and women. May they know the power that comes from your presence and your word. May they know the joy that comes from knowing they're forgiven and the hope that comes from knowing they never walk alone, because you said, I'll never leave you and never forsake you. We thank you for this in Jesus' name. God's people said, Amen. Amen.